Space is big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. I mean, you may think it's a long way down the road to the chemists, but that's just peanuts compared to space. I quote Douglas Adams, but that's because I think, with No Man's Sky, what we've created is another creation of Douglas Adams's, the Total Perspective Vortex. When you're put into the vortex, you are given just one momentary glimpse of the entire, unimaginable infinity of creation, and somewhere in it, a tiny little marker, a microscopic dot on a microscopic dot, which says, "You are here." The Total Perspective Vortex derives its picture of the whole universe on the principle of extrapolated matter analyses. To explain, since every piece of matter in the universe is in some way affected by every other piece of matter in the universe, it is in theory possible to extrapolate the whole of creation, every sun, every planet, their orbits, their composition, and their economic and social history from, say, one small piece of fairy cake. The man who invented the Total Perspective Vortex did so basically in order to annoy his wife. Trin Tragula, for that was his name, was a dreamer, a thinker, a speculative philosopher, or, as his wife would have it, an idiot. And she would nag him incessantly about the utterly inordinate amount of time he spent staring out into space, or mulling over the mechanics of safety pins, or doing spectrographic analyses of pieces of fairy cake. "Have some sense of proportion," she would say, sometimes as often as 38 times in a single day. And so, he built the Total Perspective Vortex, just to show her. And into one end he plugged the whole of reality as extrapolated from a piece of fairy cake, and into the other he plugged his wife. So that when he turned it on, she saw, in one instant, the whole infinity of creation and herself in relation to it. To Trin Tragula's horror, the shock completely annihilated her brain, but to his satisfaction, he realised that he had proved conclusively that if life is going to exist in a universe of this size, then the one thing it cannot afford to have is a sense of proportion. So what does this have to do with No Man's Sky? On the face of it, nothing. Then again, the sheer size, the sheer scale of the game somewhat approximates the real universe. And you are alone in this universe, and the odds of you even meeting anyone else, any other player in this universe, are infinitesimally small. What I think Hello Games may have inadvertently created here is an existential crisis in a can. But that might be a good thing, or it might be a bad thing. I mean, this is just a virtual experience, but will people map this to their experience of the real world, of our genuine insignificance in the face of the sheer scale of reality? This isn't an idle pondering. Astronauts who went to the moon experienced all kinds of things when they returned, and these were hard-headed, practically minded, military-trained people who weren't really considering necessarily the impact, the meaning of what they were doing. They were performing a job. And yet, looking back just from the moon to Earth, to see that we live on this pale blue dot, as Sagan would have it, had a transformative effect on many of them. Alcoholism, depression, euphoria, spiritual and religious experiences and conversions when they returned to Earth. All kinds of things. Now, I'm not one to think that games have the kind of massive impact that many people seem to think that they do. I don't think they modify behaviour in a profound way, except for people who are already mentally ill. But with this, it's something different, something special. I think it has a chance to grab onto people in the same way that Minecraft has, to become a phenomenon for a certain kind of person. And I think it may give some people a perspective on the real world in the way that the best fiction does. It might make some of us think about our place in the universe, the sheer scale of the universe. And hopefully that will be a positive thing. It will enthuse people to create meaning, to make a difference. Because that's the more positive side of the effect that it had on real astronauts. Anyway, it may be completely overhyped. It may not turn out to fulfill any of the amazing things that everyone said it would. I hope it does. And this was just a kind of idle thought brought to me by watching some of the particularly excessive fanboys really kind of squeeing over the imminent release of the game. I guess we'll all see. I intend to play it to death. If you like what I do here, please like, subscribe. You can find me on social media, on Twitter at Grimachu, James Desborough on Facebook, James Grim Desborough on G+. My main website is postmortemstudios.wordpress.com. If you want to help me out with a little money, which will go to support my games, writing and other projects, you can do so at Patreon, which is also Grimachu.